Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of 1 Kings, the 22nd chapter. And in this chapter, it pretty much ends the portion of the book of 1 Kings. But we sort of start to see the judgment that was pronounced against Ahab, starting to come forth now, beginning with his demise. So this is 1 Kings chapter 22, verse 1, and we also do get an insight into what really goes on in the heavens, right, prior to it being manifested on the earth, and that gives you that, like I mentioned, that insight into how certain judgments are carried out, originating in the spirit world and then ultimately manifesting in our world here. So 1 Kings chapter 22 verse 1, and they continued 3 years without war between Syria and Israel. Now remember, in the previous chapter, as we read, you had war between the Syrians and Israel. And the Lord had told Ahab that he would deliver the Syrians into his hand. And when the Syrians were vulnerable, they came and sought peace with Ahab. And instead of destroying them as the Lord wanted him to and set him up to, he ended up sparing the king, I believe was Ben-Hadad. And so Elijah found him, and not only did a prophet already, sort of tell him what his demise would be. And in fact, I'm just remembering that I think that might have been the chapter before the last chapter. But anyway, the recap is still good. So long story short, a prophet, lets Ahab know that his judgment is going to be basically the destruction that would come to him for him sparing Ben-Hadad. But it was after that you had the situation where, with the help of Jezebel, they ended up murdering a man to get his vineyard, right? I think the man's name was Naboth. And that was a wicked act. So anyway, verse 2. And it came to pass in the 3rd year that Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, came down to the king of Israel. And the king of Israel said unto his servants, Know ye that Ramoth in Gilead is ours, and we be still, and take it not out of the hand of the king of Syria? So remember that the Syrians, right, being warring with Israel, there were times when they would, come in, and when they had the upper hand, they would take certain cities, right, certain areas, certain locations, and set up like garrisons or whatnot, and sort of make it theirs, right? So here, yeah, we know that Ramoth Gilead, as it's referred to sometimes, was part of Israel's territory. So that's what Ahab is saying here, like, yo, we're just sitting here, and these Syrians have control of our region, our territory, and we're just not doing anything about it. Verse 4, and he said unto Jehoshaphat, which in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shaphat, meaning the Lord's judgment, Wilt thou go with me to battle to Ramoth Gilead? And Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, I am as thou art, my people as thy people, my horses as thy horses. So we're pretty much one people, So yeah, of course. And Jehoshaphat said unto the king of Israel, Inquire, I pray thee, at the word of the Lord today. So let's go and find out what the Lord, has to say concerning this matter today. And how would they do that? Via consulting a prophet of the Lord. Then the king of Israel gathered the prophets together, about 400 men, and said unto them, Shall I go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I forbear? And they said, Go up, for the Lord shall deliver it into the hand of the king. And Jehoshaphat said, Is there not a prophet of the Lord Yahweh besides, that we may inquire of him? So, yeah, you got these prophets, but there's no, I'm looking for a prophet of Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahweh Shai, And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, There is yet one man, Micaiah, the son of Imlah, by whom we may inquire of the Lord Yahweh. But I hate him, For he doth not prophesy good concerning me, but evil. Every time this guy comes around, there's always something negative, something bad that he got to say about me. So I hate his ass. I don't like him. It's pretty much Ahab's sentiment. And Jehoshaphat said, "Let not the king say so." Let's just hear what he has to say. Still a prophet of the Lord. Then the king of Israel called an officer and said, "Hasten hither Micaiah the son of Imlah." So go get him. Bring him. And the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, sat each on his throne, having put on their robes in a void place in the entrance of the gate of Samaria. And all the prophets prophesied before them. So you can imagine there were two, throne-like seats that were set for them, where they sat and heard the prophets prophesy unto them, right? These 400 prophets here. And Zedekiah, the son of Chenaanah, or Kenana, made him horns of iron. And he said, "Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, with these shalt thou push the Syrians until thou have consumed them." And all the prophets prophesied so, saying, "Go up to Ramoth Gilead and prosper, for the Lord shall deliver it into the king's hand." Now, you can imagine what this actually looks like is, by now you should see how prophets prophesy, right? These verses are just a consensus of the overall message they were given. But you can imagine, you're gonna go up, you're gonna slay them, they're gonna be cooked, and then you had like one example was Zedekiah showing the horn, saying, "With this you're gonna push them, the Lord showed me this, you're gonna get up there, you pretty much gonna lead the charge," right? Those kinds of things. Verse 13. And the messenger that was going to call Micaiah spake unto him, saying, "Behold now, the words of the prophets declare good unto the king with one mouth." So they're in one accord. They're all saying everything is going to be good for him. "Let thy word, I pray thee, be like the word of one of them, and speak that which is good." So we basically know you have a rep for. So you can think of it like today, they would say like you're that guy who's always like, you always got to say something, like you gotta just deviate from the plan, like you always got to pick trouble. But that's because Micaiah wasn't in the spirit of going along to get along, and as he's gonna tell the messenger here, right? But anyway, the messenger's like, "Look, just this is what they're saying, just go along with it, and everything is gonna be all sweet." And Micaiah said, "As the Lord Yahweh liveth, what the Lord saith unto me, that will I speak." And that's it. That's as simple as it is. And we can take a lot from this statement by Micaiah, because that's the attitude we should all have. Speak what the Lord has said unto us. Plain and simple. So he came to the king, and the king said unto him, "Micaiah, shall we go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall we forbear?" And he answered him, "Go and prosper, for the Lord Yahweh shall deliver it into the hand of the king." And the king said unto him, "How many times shall I adjure thee that thou tell me nothing but that which is true in the name of the Lord?" So basically, Micaiah was obviously being sarcastic with it, right? Like he said, "Yeah, go, yeah, of course you're gonna prosper. Lord, man, the Lord is gonna deliver into your hands. You're gonna be flying on that battlefield." Right? And it was pretty obvious that he wasn't being sincere with it, which is why Ahab gave him that response. Like, tell me what it actually is. Verse 17, and he said, "I saw all Israel scattered upon hills, as sheep that have not a shepherd. And the Lord said, These have no master. Let them return every man to his house in peace." And in other words, the Israel, right, is Israel. The shepherd would be Ahab, the king of Israel, right? So when he's saying that he saw upon the hills Israel scattered without a shepherd, and the Lord saying they have no master, that's pretty much saying, well, Ahab is going to die because he is their current master. He is their current metaphorical shepherd. So when you say they have no master, you're saying he's not there anymore. And verse 18, and the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, did I not tell thee that he would prophesy no good concerning me, but evil? And he said, and this is Micaiah, that is, hear thou therefore the word of the Lord Yahweh. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left. So that would be similar to the book of Job, the first and second chapters, about the gathering of the sons of God, being the angels at this point. So Micaiah saw this vision here of the Lord, right, on his throne. You have the host of heavens, of the heaven, all over there, right? And the Lord Yahweh said, who shall persuade Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? Because remember, the Lord had already pronounced judgment against Ahab. And one said on this manner, and another said on that manner. So they were all pitching ideas, oh, I can do this to have him go and fall, We can have the Syrians come and attack them and then trigger them to go and respond. And they were all pitching different ideas. And there came forth a spirit and stood before the Lord and said, I will persuade him. And the Lord said unto him, wherewith? What's your plan? And he said, I will go forth, and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, thou shalt persuade him, and prevail also. Go forth and do so. So the Lord liked that idea. He said, yeah, that's the one. Guy, go ahead. You've been given leeway to go ahead and bring this plan to come to pass. Now, this also goes to show you, right? This is the practicality of real life, of existence. This is how real life works, right? Yes, there was an angel that told the Lord that he is going to be a lying spirit in the mouth of the prophets of Ahab, meaning he is going to put a spirit on Ahab's prophets to lie to Ahab. But what as a matter of fact, what I want to do is look up this word lying, because in actuality, right, shaquar, deception, right? Falsehood, deception, deceive, fraudulent, right? Fraudulently, false. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily that the prophets were going to be consciously lying to Ahab. What it means, right, is that they're going to believe that what they're saying is true, but it's a lie. And that's because this angel put a deceptive spirit in their mouths to speak these things onto Ahab. And let's see how it's worded in other places. Yeah, see, it says here in the NLT, how will you do this? The Lord asked, and the Spirit replied, I will go out and inspire all of Ahab's prophets to speak lies. You will succeed, said the Lord. Go ahead and do it. See? So, that's pretty much what's going on here, right? But the point I'm making is, yes, you have these kinds of talks that go up in the heavens. The Lord in the heavens is literally discussing how he's going to put a man to death. Like, to put it plainly, how he's going to kill a man. All right. For those that don't understand the reality of how the Lord works, and they think everything is just, oh, it's Satan. Satan is the evil of the world. Satan does the biddings of the Lord. Okay. So here it's actually the Lord himself saying, I need somebody to tell me a good plan to deceive Ahab so he goes to war and he dies. I want him dead. And an angel comes and says, okay, I'm going to go and make his prophets lie. I'm an angel, right? But I'm going to make his prophets tell lies to him to deceive him. So he goes up there and he dies. All right. And a lot of people probably can't even imagine that context like this is in the scriptures in relation to a conversation in the heavens. This is supposed to be a holy place. There should be no talks about lyings and, plannings of putting others to death and judgments. Like, well, that's the concept of judgment. Anyway, verse 23. Now therefore, behold, the Lord hath put a lying spirit. So remember, this was Micaiah saying what he saw going on in the heavens. So he's concluding here in the 23rd verse saying, now therefore, behold, the Lord hath put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these thy prophets, and the Lord hath spoken evil concerning thee. So in actuality, the Lord has pronounced evil against you, and your prophets are lying to you. But Zedekiah, the son of Chenaanah, went near and smote Micaiah on the cheek and said, which way went the Spirit of the Lord from me to speak unto thee? You know, because basically, you know, in other words, you know, like, when did you become, you know, this top guy where the Spirit left me to come to you to tell you that, oh, I'm telling lies, but what you're saying is true? And if we look at this in, say, for example, the NLT, right? Then Zedekiah, the son of, well, I guess it's pronounced with a sound of a K, Chenaanah, walked up to Micaiah and slapped him across the face. Since when did the Spirit of the Lord leave me to speak to you? He demanded. So you sort of get the energy he's coming with. And Micaiah said, behold, thou shalt see in that day when thou shalt go into an inner chamber to hide thyself. And this is basically a, almost you could say like a foreshadowing that something bad would happen that would require, where this guy, Zedekiah, would have to seek some sort of safety, right, running for his life or whatever the case may be, right? Because when you read this, it's really saying that there's going to come a time when you're going to be looking to try and hide yourself in some secret place, and then you're going to realize when the Spirit of the Lord left you to come to me, and makes sense, right? Because that's technically kind of like a prophecy that Micaiah is saying concerning Zedekiah here. And when it comes to pass, Zedekiah is going to realize, oh shoot, the Spirit really was dealing with Micaiah. And so on. Verse 26, and the king of Israel said, take Micaiah and carry him back unto Amon the governor of the city, and to Joash the king's son, and say, thus saith the king. So in actuality, it could be that Micaiah was in prison, in this holding place or whatnot, which is where they went to fetch him from in the first place. Okay, because for one, Ahab already made it very clear that he did not like Micaiah. Micaiah only spake evil things concerning him, so it wouldn't be surprising that at some point he sort of had him captured and thrown in, like, you know, jail or prison or the equivalent of that back then. And to sort of second that, he told, where is it? He said, carry him back onto Amon the governor of the city. And when you speak like that, it sounds as though he left from there, right, to come here. Anyway, and to Joash the king's son, and say, thus saith the king, put this fellow in the prison, see, and feed him with the bread of affliction and with water of affliction until I come in peace. And in other words, you know, don't give him an easy time over there. All right. And as you can see, it says here, it says, put this man in prison and feed him nothing but bread and water until I return safely. But in you know, in actuality, the bread of affliction and the water of affliction really goes into like a hard time, you know, because they were gonna feed him regardless to keep him alive. So there wouldn't really be a need to specify what you should feed him with per se. Okay. But verse 28, and Micaiah said, if thou return at all in peace, the Lord Yahweh hath not spoken by me. And he said, hearken, O people, every one of you. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, went up to Ramoth Gilead. And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and enter into the battle, but put thou on thy robes. And the king of Israel disguised himself and went into the battle. So you wouldn't be able to tell that he was a king, or he was even Ahab, right? He just probably dressed up like a regular foot soldier or something. But the king of Syria commanded his 32 captains that had rule over his chariots, saying, "Fight neither with small nor great, save only with the king of Israel." Now pay close attention here, because what's happening here is the manifestation of the judgment of the Lord. And what that means is the first part of the plan was to get Ahab to go over there to the war. And now, whatever ideas came into the opposing side's mind, into anybody's mind on that battlefield, was a direct influence from the Lord to have this plan go accordingly. So the king of Syria says, don't fight with anybody except for Ahab. He's the target. And it came to pass, when the captains of the chariots saw Jehoshaphat, that they said, "Surely it is the king of Israel," right? Because he had on his robes. And in war, it's not like they're running around with binoculars that they can just look and see, oh no, that's not him, right? So they're like, oh, it's him, let's go. And they turned aside to fight against him. And Jehoshaphat cried out. And it came to pass, when the captains of the chariots perceived that it was not the king of Israel, that they turned back from pursuing him, because he wasn't their target. And a certain man drew a bow at a venture and smote the king of Israel between the joints of the harness. Now, what I want to do is look up this word here, venture. Thama. It says completeness, fullness, simplicity, integrity, innocence, right? Let's see what else they have here. Right, morally innocent. So I want to see actually how it's worded in one of these other translations, but it could be one of two things, right? He just drew it just by chance, right? To and shot it up, or by the other definition, which is like he drew it completely, right, in its fullness. But I think what makes more sense here is that, like when they say like peradventure, right? So this guy, he just drew the bow, right? Let it go. Wasn't like he had seen Ahab per se and he was aiming directly at him, but he sort of just let it out because it's still war. So you can see like in the NLT, it says an Aramean, which is Syrian, soldier, however, randomly shot an arrow at the Israelite troops and hit the king of Israel between the joints of the armor. And the key point here is randomly. That's that venture. So let's continue on here. And smote the king of Israel between the joints of the harness. Wherefore he said unto the driver of his chariot, "Turn thine hand and carry me out of the host, for I am wounded." What's interesting about this is this is definitely the architecture, right? Or it was architected, if that's a correct use of that word, if that is even a word, by the Lord, because that bow that was shot, that arrow that was shot, was directed and controlled by the Lord, obviously via like some angel or whatnot, to directly hit Ahab and to land nowhere else, on no one else, but right between the joints of Ahab's armor, to make it through, to pierce him, likely at a vital location, to where his wound became deadly. Okay, and that doesn't happen by chance. This was a controlled scenario here. And the battle increased that day. So Ahab gets hit, he's wounded, he says, "Yo, take me off the battlefield, I'm wounded." And the battle increased that day, and the king was stayed up in his chariot against the Syrians, and died at even. And the blood ran out of the wound into the midst of the chariot. So he ended up dying, his blood having dripped all into the chariot he was in. And there went a proclamation throughout the host about the going down of the sun, right? So throughout the armies, saying, every man to his city and every man to his own country. Sound familiar? Right? Let's put a bookmark or a little mark here and let's jump back up a bit to what Micaiah was saying. All right. And this is what he said in verse 17. And he said, I saw all Israel scattered upon hills as sheep that have not a shepherd. And the Lord said, these have no master. Let them return every man to his house in peace. And well, lo and behold, their master was gone and they left. Right? They all came back. Anyway, it says here, so the king died and was brought to Samaria, and they buried the king in Samaria. And one washed the chariot in the pool of Samaria, and the dogs licked up his blood. And they washed his armor according unto the word of the Lord which he spake. Now I want to cross-reference this real quick, just to jump back to where that prophecy was. Here we go. I think it should be, yep. Might be in here. 1 Kings 21 and 19. And yep. This is what the Lord told Elijah to tell Ahab. And this is literally the previous chapter, right? And the word of the Lord, I'm going to read it again, came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Arise, go down to meet Ahab, king of Israel, which is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, whither he is gone down to possess it. And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Hast thou killed, and also taken possession? And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, In the place where dogs licked the blood of Naboth, shall dogs lick thy blood, even thine. And fast forwarding back to 1 Kings 22, we see what's happening over here. Right, as they were washing the chariot, as it mentions in the pool of Samaria, the dogs were licking up the blood, because remember, the blood was all in the chariot, and this was Ahab's blood, that is. And they washed the armor according to the word of the Lord which he spake, as we just saw. Okay, so where this area was, it's like pool of Samaria, or whatever the case is. Long story short, within the same region, the same area, as the Lord said, is where they had, likely around where they had stoned Naboth, right? They put him to death without a righteous cause. Verse 39, Now the rest of the acts of Ahab, and all that he did, and the ivory house which he made, and all the cities that he built, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? So Ahab slept with his fathers, and Ahaziah his son reigned in his stead. So now Ahab's story is closed, he's gone, and his son Ahaziah is now king of Israel. So now we get a bit of we've covered Ahab. Right now we get a bit of information now on the southern kingdom side with Jehoshaphat. And Jehoshaphat the son of Asa began to reign over Judah in the 4th year of Ahab king of Israel. And Jehoshaphat was 35 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 25 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Azubah, the daughter of Shilhi. And he walked in all the ways of Asa his father, and he turned not aside from doing doing that which was right in the eyes of the Lord. Now keep in mind, Asa did do right when we read it, as we've read so far about him, right? For the most part, he did right according to the Lord. And so his son Jehoshaphat walked in that same path over here. Nevertheless, the high places were not taken away, for the people offered and burnt incense yet in the high places. And Jehoshaphat made peace with the king of Israel. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoshaphat and his might that he shewed and how he warred, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And the remnant of the Sodomites which remained in the days of his father Asa, he took out of the land. So he basically got him up out of there. There was no king in Edom, a deputy was king. Or there was then no king in Edom, a deputy was king. And Jehoshaphat made ships of Tarshish, and Edom is talking about that region, right? Because remember, Edom is south of um, south of Israel, right at this point. And I believe, right, as far as we've seen so far, you had King David, that conquered pretty much the region. And during the time of King Solomon, they stayed, Israel still stayed in power. And so following like the kings subsequently afterward, we still have some grip, some control, some power of the regions around us, right? They haven't necessarily broken free just yet. Okay, so you can imagine in the region of Edom, right, them not having a king of their own, but as it says, a deputy was king. And if you look into that, as we read in the other translations, you have like a provincial governor, and when it says was king, it's pretty much like the one that ruled, right? So a deputy, a governor, somebody that was put like to oversee it or govern under the supervision of a higher authority over there. Jehoshaphat made ships of Tarshish to go to Ophir for gold, but they went not, for the ships were broken at Ezion Geber. And we can look that up here. Ezion Geber. Okay, so here they have it somewhere around here. Yeah, and like I mentioned before, it's hard to pinpoint exactly where these locations were, but if you have Edom around here, you have Ezion Geber somewhere around here. The point is, his plans of trying to go to Ophir to get that gold, like during the time of King Solomon, it didn't work out. Okay, the ships weren't able to even make it there. Then Ahaziah, the son of Ahab, then said Ahaziah, the son of Ahab, unto Jehoshaphat, let my servants go with thy servants in the ships. But Jehoshaphat would not. And Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David, his father, and Jehoram, his son, reigned in his stead. So at this point, Jehoshaphat is now gone, and his son Jehoram is reigning in his stead. And I believe in the northern kingdom, this should be also Ahaziah reigning at that point. Ahaziah, the son of Ahab, began to reign over Israel in Samaria the 17th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and reigned 2 years over Israel. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord Yahweh, and walked in the way of his father, and in the way of his mother, right, being Ahab and Jezebel, and in the way of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. So, well, it could be that Ahaziah's reign probably ended also during the time of Jehoshaphat. And so by the time Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, comes into power, the king of the northern kingdom probably is not Ahaziah, right? If he reigned only for 2 years, that is. Because we know that he started to reign, as it says here, I think it tells us, yeah, in the 17th year of Jehoshaphat's reign. And Jehoshaphat reigned, I think it said, for how long? Definitely had to be over, yeah, he reigned 25 years, right? So there goes that, meaning that Ahaziah's reign would have been during the time of Jehoshaphat, and Ahaziah's son would have probably had to come up after him, and so on and so forth. So Ahaziah does not deviate from the ways of his father or his mother or Jeroboam. He continues in that wickedness. Verse 53, for he served Baal and worshipped him, and provoked to anger Yahweh, God of Israel, according to all that his father had done. And this brings us to the end of the book of 1 Kings, the 22nd chapter, and also the end of the book of 1 Kings. So far, we've seen the death of Solomon, right? The death of King David, the death of Solomon, and how the kingdom is, you can sort of start to see how the power of the kingdom of Israel is waning, and it's just becoming, more and more destructured with this heavy increase in idolatry, this warring back and forth. And soon we'll start to see the the rising of the neighboring nations and empires that will eventually put an end to this temporary state that Israel was in. So with that, Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.